Okay, hello everybody. Um, so initially, I had planned on doing a video. Some of you have asked me previously for like sales scripts, whether it be via email or cold calling, that kind of thing. And I had initially planned on kind of touching on some of that some more today, giving some examples and some things, and sending out to anybody that wanted it. However, um, today was a little bit of a like I don't want to cuss. Um, Today was a little bit of a I guess is what I'm going to say. Um, and as you notice from the thumbnail, I said freight shippers are the devil. Well, that's kind of true. Uh, in a recent video that I had shown from DAT, and they mentioned how, shippers are elephants and carriers are goldfish, right? Based on memory. They all remember, this and that, whether the market's down, whether it's up. I don't know that I would 100% agree with that. To some extent, I do. But I'm going to tell you, I have, and this is for my own personal instance, I have a customer that I've been with for what, 4 or 5 years now, primarily spot market freight, this and that. They recently had done in the past year some dedicated, and it had started off with year-round freight, right? Like we bid on it, it was ours for the year, it was our obligation to cover it, right? um, didn't end up happening that way. As a result of how things turned out last year, they decided to do everything quarterly, and they have beat us up consistently every quarter throughout 2022. In fact, going into 2023, they didn't even send out their RFP sheet to us like they had every quarter previously. And they just said, hey, can you cover this? And if so, what's your adjusted rate? Like they expected us to cut our rate accordingly, right? Now, that being said, I have a carrier that's been running this lane, a particular lane for me, all week long, Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, with the exception I had to throw the Friday load on the spot market. And I had some fairly regular carriers that, when they were in the area, they handled it for me fine. Then at the beginning of the fourth quarter, they took our Monday load away from us. Okay. They said they were going to another outside carrier just to kind of see how that was going to work out. Well, today I found out who that outside carrier was. I'm not going to blast them out there. It's no fault of their own, but they were inevitably a broker. So the customer lied, which I'm finding out as we're kind of transitioning into the 2023 market. For those of you, there's always been like a bullwhip effect, an ebb and a flow, whatever you want to call it, throughout our industry, right? But all right, I'm going to try not to get too off track here. Anywho, we lost our Monday load, right? Which was, if anything, I would have rather lost the Friday load. But we lost our Monday, and I would inevitably end up throwing the Friday load out to one of my other regulars that were in the area on Fridays. And today I actually got a call from my carrier who handles that load for us predominantly. Tuesday through Thursday, and said, hey, I'm not sure if you're aware of what's going on. Kind of filled me in with who they were getting the Monday load from. And more or less, they're slowly but surely ripping that lane away from us, right? I could understand that if this customer was more asset based, but when they have overflow freight, even on this other lane, like oftentimes they'll reach out to me and say, hey, Tim, do you have anybody extra that can pick up this load? It won't load until 10 o'clock at night, but if you've got somebody, that's fine. But they also throw it up on their live load board. Okay. Now, what they pay me $1,400 to do, they post at 11. Okay. Market rate typically averages right around 12, sometimes 13. But they have beat us up ever since the end of the second quarter, more so to date than anything. And now, okay, let me ask you this, and I'm hoping that I'll get a reply. If you, as a broker or a carrier, committed to a contract rate, lane, etc., and you reneged and said, hey, I can't do this anymore, or I can't do it at this rate anymore, how do you think your shipper would respond? Now, flip that, and your customer now says, hey, I know we just started this, but we're going to rip pretty much everything away from you. It's their prerogative, right? I guess it just wouldn't work. So this carrier that I've been working with for a year, right? And I've worked with them in the past prior to, we just happened to put together this dedicated lane. Now, all of a sudden, even though they've been beating us up year round, and like I said, this last quarter rate submission, I didn't even contact my carrier and say, hey, can you help me readjust this rate a little bit to accommodate the customer? No, I trimmed my margin. And they know that. They know exactly what I get paid because I'm pretty transparent that way. I've been in the industry for a long time. I value my carrier relationships. And I guess to kind of skip forward a little bit, my point being with all of this is that based on the data and everything that we're seeing is that we're supposed to be hitting this big carrier purge, right? We're supposed to lose 3 out of every 5 carriers from between now and the end of the third quarter. Whether that holds true or not, or maybe even the end of the second quarter, whatever it is. But I'm curious what's going to happen even if freight volumes stay the same, right? Like there's just not enough freight, but we end up losing 3/5 of our carriers in the market. What happens to rates at that point? And at which point do customers start saying, hey, what happened? Where's my dedicated drivers? It's only their prerogative when the contract term ends. Well, we're actually in the middle of a contract, right? We just renewed our contract for the first quarter. We barely just hit February. So riddle me that. They're the destroyers of relationships. Shippers, and you can say, Tim, it's business. There's nothing personal about it. But at some point in time, it kind of does become a little bit personal, right? At least I think so. And correct me if I'm wrong, because when capacity shrinks and they have a hard time getting their freight moved, they're going to go, well, what happened to your carrier relationships? Why can't you get this load moved? Or why can't you get it moved for, this, for our target rate anymore? it's going to inevitably cost them more in the long run, right? Doing things the way they're doing. Because, okay, if and when I do post stuff out on the spot market, let's just, as a hypothetical situation, let's say I book the load at $2,000 to the truck, right, to the carrier. And then I've still got calls coming in and they go, well, I'm like, I'm sorry, I literally just covered that load. I've taken it down off the board. You probably haven't seen it, come down yet, but it's coming down. And they're like, well, how much did you move the load for? $2,000. Well, if you give it to me, I'll do it for 18. No. Maybe some other brokers do things that way. I don't. I'm not here to try to destroy relationships. If anything, I'm here to build them, because I've seen the value in establishing relationships and keeping them, right? Not just keeping them when it benefits me, or my customer when, say, maybe the market rate is down. But when it comes back, inevitably my customers are going to need me to keep those relationships. So when they beat me up, right, and beat my carriers up, it sort of pees me off a little bit. All right. So I've got a couple of images that I'm going to pull up for you guys as an example. And from this same customer, and some of you might know who it is. I kind of did a screenshot. I cut it out a little bit. So because I don't want to get caught in any kind of mishap. It is personal. I always think it is. I work really hard to provide impeccable service, and then find out it means nothing if they can do it for a nickel less. Exactly. In fact, I had this almost the same conversation with one of my shippers who doesn't have regular day-to-day freight with me, right? I'm their only broker. Well, I shouldn't say that. They do have a couple of other outside brokers if by chance I'm not available, or something, which 99.9% of the time I am, or their receiver will say, oh, we don't like that rate. We're going to shop around a little bit. And he says, Tim, we're losing out on business because we're not the cheapest. Well, I never promised you that I was going to be the cheapest. I'm also not the highest. But what I do expect is a reasonable rate for my carriers that I've established relationships, who aren't running on bald tires, who I know are going to pick the load up on time, and who's going to deliver on time. Inevitably, what's that going to cost you if that load does not get picked up and delivered on time? How many times over is it going to cost you versus spending an extra $100 or $200 that I asked for over what you're currently paying? Right? Is it going to cost you an additional $1,000 because that load's late? I'd love to know about it. I guarantee it is. And inevitably, that's what's going to end up happening. But they don't care. They're looking at, they've got tunnel vision. They don't understand, what's going on. And I hate having this conversation with my drivers, my owner operators, and with my fleet owners, and as I'm trying to help out others, some of you that follow me on my YouTube channel, you're hitting me up. Hey, I've got so many trucks. Tim, I'd love to work with you. Can you help me out? I'm not the only one out there. There's other brokers out there. Rob, for instance, I commented on one of his posts the other day. Rob's an outstanding individual. I believe we've spoken once or twice before. Kind of went above and beyond, took care of his driver, took care of his customer and everything. But that's what we should be doing. We are an impartial third party. We're not supposed to work more for the shipper or more for the carrier. We're supposed to kind of create that happy marriage, as I've kind of explained in previous videos. But they don't always see that. When the market turns in their favor, they're going to take advantage of it. Now, do carriers do the same thing? Sure. Absolutely. And even some of those carriers who don't provide the service they should based on the rate that they've negotiated. And it's unfortunate. Same as it's unfortunate that we have some brokers in the industry that don't value relationships, and they just, they beat up carriers regardless of how the market is. But for those of us, and like I said, I'm speaking for myself personally and the few that I know, for those of us that are trying to establish relationships, and we've been working with some of these clients for 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 years even. It's kind of sad to see it. It's sort of, like I said, it pees me off a little bit. It really does, for them to just flip like that, like over a nickel, over $50 or something. But I'm going to pull up some stuff, like I said, like I promised, on some loads that have literally been sitting there all day. And I refuse to post it. I refuse to be a part of the problem. I'm not going to do it. Could I do it and probably get a truck? Sure. I make $100, but I'm not going to do it because I think it's BS. Because and here's why. And before I do it, we're in February now, right? February 2nd. It's wintertime, Midwest, Northwest, Northeast. There's snow. There's things going on. So how much do shippers value that? Everything that a truck driver, an owner-operator, a fleet owner, how much value is put into that? I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to see your comments about it. How much value? Do they, they sit back and they look at data, come on. Now, I don't know who this gentleman is, but I'm sure he bust his you-know-what to get out of there and hopefully probably try to get that load delivered on time. Anywho, I digress. And I apologize. It's a little bit of a rant. I'm upset. I'm upset. And maybe now is not the best time for me to be doing this video, but I'm pissed off. Because I know that even some of my dedicated carriers, owner-operators are out there struggling, and I'm doing everything I can on my part, but it hurts when I've got my shippers, who, like I said, who I've been with for years and years and years, just boop, they don't care. And I don't know, maybe there was a transition with management. We've got somebody new in who isn't aware, and everything's getting handed down. I haven't got that far in yet, but anyway, I'm a little PO'd. So bear with me. So here we go. Here's what. Now, normally this shipper, they, when volumes were up, they would typically have 20, 30 loads a day for us, right? But here's their rate to me as a broker. And I have to make money on this, right? Right? Otherwise, I'm just working for free. Okay? But apparently they expect my drivers to work for free. Okay? So I just pulled this up on DAT, looking at the spot market. These are spot market loads. This isn't anything dedicated. But Elk Grove Village, Illinois, going to Salt Lake City, Utah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, there's not a lot coming out of Salt Lake City, Utah. If somebody, your passion is why I hope we find a lane that works for me to work with you consistently. Sir, ma'am, you show up as Facebook user on my chat, so I'm not trying to offend, but yes, I hope that we could work together as well. In fact, that kind of brings me to another story about Mike with a recent load that we had, and I'll get into that as well. But let me finish this rant first before I get into my other one. So looking at this lane out of Illinois to Salt Lake City, Utah, I pulled this lane up on DAT. Okay, here it is, Elk Grove Village, Illinois, Salt Lake City, dry van. Now, the rate doesn't adjust for weight or length or anything, obviously. But here's the market rate, almost $3,900. That's your average spot market rate on this lane. And they wanted to pay what? $3,300. So as a broker, for me to move that load at roughly what, 8%, 8.1, 8.2%, something like that, right? I'm just doing math off the top of my head. Correct me if I'm wrong. Hey, Mike. Hey, brother. Before I keep going on with this, Mike, I'm trying to get some more freight for you, brother. I have some stuff that I'm working on. I'm telling you, it's a struggle on my end as much on yours. And either talk to me after the show or get a hold of me tomorrow. You have my number. If you don't PM me, I'll get you my number back. Okay? Because actually, I needed you last week and the week before. I had some stuff, but I noticed you were in Texas at the time. Anyway, so right off the bat, so basically we're looking at roughly $3,900 on this lane. Customer wants to pay me $39,000. If I work at roughly an 8% margin, that means I got to try to sell that load to a carrier for $3,000. Riddle me how that works without the carrier thinking, right? That owner operator, that fleet owner, that dispatcher, whoever it is, thinking that I'm taking $1,000 or more off the top, right? We see the posts, no cheap freight, brokers are parasites, but here it is, straight from the customer, right? I just took a screenshot and showed you guys straight up. Now, mind you, this customer, because I looked up how much they did in revenue in 2022, because their numbers just came out, they did a little over 6.9 billion in revenue last year. 6.9 billion. And then now they're gonna take away my lane with my relationship with my carrier, so they can throw it out on the spot market for what, $300-400 less. Tell me how that works. And when they start crying come the end of the third quarter, or whenever the flip happens after the purge happens, and they're crying for capacity, and oh, Tim, what happened? Now, mind you, this same customer, and not to get fixated on this customer because they're not the only ones. I'm literally using them as an example. Back in, what was it, the end of July, first part of August, called me up, beat me up for what seemed like an hour about why my driver didn't show up, and why I'm not doing this, and why I'm not doing that. Only come to find out, when I said, what's that load number again? And they told me, I double checked, wasn't even my load. It was some other spot market load that wasn't even mine. Now, this customer has consistently sent me emails, made phone calls to me, berating me for stuff that's not even mine. Now, I could understand them taking the lane away from me if me and my carrier didn't do our job. But we have been on point every day of the week. Every day of the week. I think, in fact, I can only think of 2 instances where we were actually late delivering a load. One was due to a flat tire, and road service couldn't get there. The second one was because they lowered the driver late at pickup. And we had our in and out times because this carrier is on point. They call me, I notify them, they send me screenshots, pics of the timed in and out that the shipper gave them, everything. Right? I've paid detention out of my own pocket on this because the shipper, they don't do it. Now they do pay detention, but not on their dedicated stuff. They expect me to handle it, right? But then they turn around and do this in the middle of a contract. I guess my point to all this, besides me being pissed off, is that I want owner operators, fleet owners out there to kind of be aware of what's happening in the marketplace, right? Firsthand, aside from just looking at what's posted out on DAT and going, holy crap, these brokers are stealing all this money. It's not always necessarily the case. Is it happening? I'm sure it is, probably. But going into this, if to survive this year, I truly believe that it's going to mean establishing relationships, not just when the market's up or just when it's down, but consistently. It's been my belief since I've been doing this however long, to keep relationships as much as humanly possible, right? Because your fault, their fault, nobody's fault. Customers will leave you. Shippers will leave you. Whether you're a broker or a carrier, they're going to leave you. So the big thing is constantly be soliciting new business and keeping your broker and carrier relationships strong. I believe that's the only way to survive this industry. I truly do. And if I'm wrong, I'd love to hear about it. It boggles my mind, the tunnel vision that so many have, and it doesn't matter whether and it's unfortunate because a lot of new owner operators and that kind of got into this industry in the downturn of everything probably won't make it. They'll probably be some of the first ones to go, and it hurts because I never want to see anybody fail. It's the whole reason behind the Facebook group. It's the whole reason behind the YouTube channel is so that we can network and build each other up, because inevitably there should be enough business for everybody. I mean, for the most part, right? And I don't know. I just never want to see anybody fail. I've always tried to provide as much information as I possibly can without divulging too much and destroying relationships. But yeah, it's going to get tough out there, and I think it will be whether you're a broker or a carrier. And now, so more than ever, now, like I said, this particular customer did just under $7 billion in revenue last year. Okay. It is my belief that if you're a broker, whether you're a veteran in the industry, you're just getting established or brand new, to focus on those small to medium-sized shippers. If you're a carrier soliciting new business, direct shippers, don't go after the big boys, right? Don't go after GM. Don't go after, XYZ. Go after your small to medium-sized shippers, because that is predominantly where the money's going to be at. These large shippers are going to leverage their influence on the industry and drive the market rate down. They're going to destroy relationships like they have in my example, and it inevitably caused the downfall of so many carriers. I think that more could sustain if more shippers were being a little bit more reasonable, but we'll end up losing more than we should. I believe that. I don't think it's necessary that I think the purge is going to happen regardless, but I don't think that we should have to lose as many carriers and or brokers. The layoffs that we've hit, I get inflation. I'm not going to get into politics, and all of that is obviously having an influence on things. And I get from a business standpoint, but it's not always just about business. Because like I said, they're going to be crying. They're going to be crying. And then we'll see a new influx of carriers, new authorities being submitted, new drivers, kind of coming in when the market's good. And then inevitably that bullwhip effect, or that ebb and flow that I keep talking about that happens, historically, will inevitably end up happening again. And we'll forget about this when the market is back up. I don't know. Tell me if I'm wrong. I'd love to hear some of your comments, guys. Some of my thoughts on soliciting new business and purge and everything. Not to take you off topic, how does one identify small to medium shippers? Is it from the number of employees and their revenue? I would say yes. Yes, look at their revenue. And part of what we should be doing as brokers is helping that customer grow and helping our carriers grow, right? Whether they're a single owner op, I've not to toot my own horn, but I've had single owner ops that I've worked with that I brought in so much business for them that they were able to expand. And the next thing you know, they've got 2 trucks, 3 trucks, 4 trucks, 5 trucks, 10 trucks, 20 trucks, because I did my job and they did theirs, right? We did what we said we were going to do as professionals in the industry, and both of our businesses built. I'm listening to you, but got not much to add as I'm just learning by hearing. Yeah, and that's fine. Focus on, I would say any of those customers are doing like $500,000 a year in revenue, all the way up to just under $1 billion, right? Would be considered small to medium. If there's another broker out there or anybody that says, nah, trim that or expand that, let me know. But that's my thoughts on it. Maybe 800 million a year in revenue or less. But that's where my focus would be going into 2023, and even outside of 2023, even when the market's good. I love small to medium sized shippers. Usually you kind of can build a rapport with them. They're not as easy to just leave you, right? Or fish out, throw the line out looking for other outside rates, because then you just get people beating each other up, and I see it. And with technology, there's some of these boards and things out there, and some shippers even have it where they turn in their bid and you'll see a list, XYZ carrier is winning currently. It's like an auction website, only it's like a reverse auction. Think about eBay. Highest bid wins. On these shipper bid sites, I call them, lowest bid wins. Well, all they're doing is driving everybody out of business, right? And this is another reason why I kind of felt like doing this video today. And again, I apologize that I'm kind of ranting a little bit, but I wanted to bring a little bit of truth to things versus, you could jump on and look up, how do freight brokers, work? How much money can you make as a freight broker? And you'll get some Yahoo on there telling you, oh, there's gobs and gobs of money, and here's how you do this. But they don't tell you the dark side of everything. Or that you should be establishing carrier relationships, right? Or they're just pimps for some other business trying to sell you on, some of their outside service. Now, do we have supporters of our channel and our Facebook group? Absolutely. They're businesses that I stand behind, businesses that I use personally, and I recommend them. You don't want to use them, don't use them. Easy Propel, StraddlePay, DAT, my buddy Shaggy, they're doing surety bonds, insurance now. Great guys. In fact, if you want more additional information, follow them. They got a ton of information out there. They'll help you out. They'll help you grow your business. Not just me, right? They've got a ton of information. Shaggy came from the carrier side of things. People who came over and are now very, very successful in what they're doing. They believe in networking, you know, and they've grown and and look at the reviews. They've helped so many other people grow. Anywho, I've been kind of ranting on here. I didn't mean to be in kind of a bad mood, but you guys, if anybody else has any other comments, let me know what you think. Let me know if my position on everything is wrong. Now, will I go out and try to find new business? Absolutely. Is it a hiccup? Possibly. But at the same time, I don't want to lose my carriers. And I understand their struggle, and I don't want to see them go under because I don't want to be a load board jockey. Right? I don't want to promise a new prospect that, hey, I've got capacity and just to throw it out on the load board. That's not my end goal. Using Mike, for instance, if I say, yeah, I've got a driver that can handle that for you every week. And I, you know, and I had already talked to Mike and said, hey, if we can negotiate this rate, does that work for you? And Mike says, yeah, let's do it. I'd rather do that than throw that out and not know who I'm dealing with. I mean, obviously you got to take that plunge somewhere, but you know, the idea being, oh, and earlier I had mentioned about another scenario that I had this week. I got a load from a new prospect. They wanted me to quote a load. Load has got to go. It's got to go, right? So I talked to a carrier. Yep, here's how much we can do it for inside the customer's target rate. We meet their target rate, get it turned in, which wasn't horrible, right? There wasn't like we were, you know, at the bottom of the barrel or anything. It was actually a fairly reasonable rate. Was it phenomenal? No, but it was reasonable. And so we get it turned in. I let the prospect know, yep, we've got capacity. We've actually got someone 15 minutes away. They can go pick it up. We've met your rate, all your criteria. Carrier's been properly vetted. And we had some very long conversations, you know, about a lot of things. But anywho, and then all of a sudden, no action. No action from that prospect. Now, are they fishing around to multiple other brokers and carriers? Quite possibly. Maybe they found a rate for $500, $600, $1,000 less. Maybe. But it just, when the market flips and the rates go up, I guarantee you those same prospects will be replying back in 5 minutes and answering the phone. But it's just very, very funny how when the market is in decline, right, and they don't, all of a sudden shippers don't care about your broker relationships, your carrier relationships, how quickly that flips when the market goes up. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Again, I know I was a little bit all over the place with all of that, but if anybody has anything else to comment on this or to add, I'd love to hear about it. But I love seeing some of the success stories. Again, Rob, I love seeing your post, and hey, you should toot your horn. You know, you went above and beyond for your customer and your carrier getting that load done. You know, and that's what we do. You know, I make sure all of my drivers have my personal cell phone number. I don't care if it's 3 o'clock in the morning. You have a breakdown, something happens, call me. I'm not reading my email when I'm sleeping, but I'll sure as hell answer the phone. Right? I know not all brokers work the same as me, and like I said, I can only work, you know, vouch for how I do things, and some others that I network with, and not that I'm trying to, you know, dog any other brokers or, you know, brag on myself or anything, but it's what we should be doing as professionals in the industry. It's what we should be doing, right? We expect that from the other side. So if we expect that from them, whether it's the customer or the carrier, we should be doing the same, holding up our end of things. So, all right. Well, I guess if there's no other comments, no questions, no additional answering, I appreciate you guys listening to my rant. Um, I'm sorry if I get a little uppity there, but like I said, it really kind of paid me off today with the whole, going outside, because now I'm kind of like left in limbo. Do we even have what we have for the month? But how quickly would that destroy that relationship with that customer if we did the same to them? You know what I mean? We said, oh, well, we can't run it for that rate. What if the market flipped today and all of a sudden that lane went from 1,200 to 1,800? How pissed off would that customer be if we had to go back and ask for more money? Or just drop the lane and make them put it out on the spot market? Food for thought, guys. So, anywho, again, I appreciate y'all listening to me. Like I said, I did have another video planned for today on sales, via cold calling and emailing. And if I get a chance, I'll try to do it tomorrow. If not, maybe I can add it into my Monday's video that we do regularly. So, anywho, I'll end this now, and I guess, as always, be kind to one another. Bye-bye now.